And we're live on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. And welcome to another edition, the first of the new year of the Michigan Basketball Insider. I got to tell you, this outstanding basketball team, still the best basketball team in the land in my eyes. I miss talking about them with my man, my guy, my big fella. I know him as Timmy Mack, but let's give you the full bio. Big time player out of Clarkston, Michigan. Went on to the University of Michigan to be a first round draft pick in the National Basketball Association, where he ran the floor for 10 seasons before becoming one of the best basketball commentators in the land, talking college ball, NBA, and of course with us here on the Michigan Basketball Insider, Tim McCormick. We know him as Timmy Mack. Tim, how you doing?
Fantastic, Sam. I miss talking to you and Ira, and I hope you and your family are doing great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And definitely when it comes to talking about this basketball team, yeah, it's always you're talking, at least it had been, you're always talking about something just amazing. Their defense is amazing, how they're just blowing every team out by 30, 40 points. Is just amazing. But you don't go through a season. No team goes through a season without adversity. And very, very few go through without ever losing a game. So you felt like it was inevitable. Well, they ran into that on Saturday, Tim, when they lost their first game of the season to the Wisconsin Badgers. I'm curious your takeaways.
I have a lot. First of all, I think that the Gonzaga 40-point win and the Wisconsin loss are the two most interesting games that I've watched all year. And I didn't like the outcome, but I can't say that I was surprised at all. And I did watch it with a little bit different perspective. On Saturday, I had Rhode Island at Davidson, and yesterday I had St. Joe's at Richmond. So I was really busy broadcasting and didn't have a chance to watch the Michigan game live. My game was going head-to-head with that. But I knew the outcome. I knew the score. I knew who had played well. And I knew how Wisconsin won the game before I started watching the Michigan-Wisconsin game. And something really became apparent that maybe I would have missed the first time around, just watching the game as a fan. I thought that Michigan played at 80% in almost everything that they did. And that comes with what Hunter Dickinson said in my podcast last week, is that the one thing he worries about with Michigan is complacency. It's really hard to pull up your social media and everybody's saying best team in the country, greatest Michigan team ever, unstoppable, they'll be undefeated. It's really hard to fight that and not be complacent. I thought that Michigan was a step slow in their help coverage in the pick and roll game, running in transition. The communication was 80%. The bench was not as enthusiastic as I've seen. That there's a certain feeling like, oh, we're better than everybody, we're going to find a way to win it. There was some slippage, and it goes back 2 or 3 games, maybe even longer. We don't necessarily see it because we're so much better than everybody, but I saw slippage, and I saw an 80% pace in the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, that was very much the commentary from Dusty after the game. He said, hey, there's about 10 minutes there toward the end where we're competing at a different level than we were the other 30. It's like, you can't have that, right?
They turned it up, right? They turned it up a little bit.
They turned it up. And Justin Joyner said the same thing when he was just on. He said, hey, the competitive energy just wasn't there for a good portion of this game. And it can't be that way for us. And it's actually been that way, he said, for a few games. They just were able to turn it up enough to beat those other teams. So, that's something that is very much within their control. I'm curious your take on things that maybe competitive energy affects it. So it's maybe a component of it. But I'm curious your take on Michigan as a rebounding team, Tim. It wasn't as much of of a losing factor in this game as it was in the Penn State game that they actually won. But boy, by the skin of their teeth, when Penn State actually, owned the boards in that game. And Dusty's been talking about this, as have the assistants, say we need to be a better rebounding team. And that just strikes me as amazing to be talking about that with a team with so much size. What do you see about their rebounding?
Yeah, so last year's team with Wolf and Golden was not a good rebounding team. I didn't think either one of those guys rebounded out of their zone at all. This team, much better. The challenge they're going to face is defensively. Dusty May and Mike Boynton as the defensive coordinator, they are encouraging mid-range shots and contested threes. That's great, except those shots, if they miss, they're going to bounce out long. And it's just inherent with that kind of a defense philosophy, kind of like playing a zone. You're encouraging the team, if they miss, to get offensive rebounds. I think it's a good rebounding team. I think they're capable of more. They can hold their blockouts a little bit more because they have three guys that are so long, and then they bring length in the game. Michigan's guards are good rebounders too. They're capable of so much more, but I don't think it's a major problem right now. The problem, once again, it goes back to that 80%. I thought everything that they did when they warmed up before the game, they were 80%. When they ate their pregame meal, they went at 80%. The attention to detail when the coaches were talking, everything was a little bit slower. And that's what happens when everybody tells you how great you are. Sam, if somebody tells you you're the greatest radio broadcaster in the world, if they tell you that every day, you're going to relax. That's just human nature. And the nice thing is, I think Michigan's problems are highly correctable.
So one of the things that has manifested here in the last couple of games is 5 men who can pull their bigs out of the post, specifically a die. It was Urich against Penn State. And for him, he was putting it on the deck more so than anything else. In this last game, they were knocking down threes in the second half at a rate that was foreign to them this season. But what do you think about that? About the stretch five sort of vulnerability? I could see that being an issue when they play Illinois, for instance. So what do you think? Do you adjust to that with the matchup and the personnel you play? What do you see happening as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, I think that Michigan is completely capable of switching 1 through 5. Adai Mara can cover guys on the perimeter, especially for short stretches. I think that the reason they switch 1 through 4 instead of 1 through 5 has nothing to do with the fact that Adai can't cover those guys. I think it's more he's just so valuable closing off the rim. And so I think moving forward, there will be more times that when Adai is on the court, if you're playing Illinois, Nebraska, same problem. Some of the bigs for Purdue are going to create different problems, but there are threats out there too. I think that they're going to go more switching 1 through 5 because I think Michigan's totally capable of that.
Yeah, it's uncanny. Just their defensive prowess in the paint with him on the floor. It's not like they're bad when he's off. I mean, they're still really good. The metrics say they're really good when he's off the floor. But Tim, this last game notwithstanding, where it was really the 3-point shooting that was although they did have some dribble penetration in this game too. This is just an outlier for them defensively. But they have been obliterating teams on the defensive end of the floor. And I want some perspective from you as a basketball guy, having seen a lot of teams, how this team defensively kind of ranks in your eyes early in the season still, but how it ranks compared to some other really good defensive teams that you've seen, because the metrics say they're one of the best we've ever seen at Michigan, at least to this point.
It's the best defensive team I've seen at Michigan. And to put it in perspective, because I can't really look at college basketball teams and say, well, this one was better than Michigan. They're as good as I've seen. They're physical like the old Purdue teams. They have physical ability like some of the old Michigan State teams. But I'm going to go back to my NBA career. I remember every time I played against the Bulls, the Lakers, and the Celtics, you never got layups. They just were so fundamentally sound and so connected that you were going to have to make really tough shots if you were going to beat them. And this Michigan team says, look, you can shoot mid-range shots. That's the lowest value in all of college basketball, but you are not going to get layups. And once again, they gave up too many open shots against Wisconsin, but it's not a function of their system. It's not a function of their players. It's just human nature caused them to take a deep breath and say, man, we're good. Everybody loves us. We're number one in this and we're number one in that. And no, that you can't have that approach. I think that was Michigan's fatal flaw against Wisconsin.
Yeah, part of it is, hey, your best guy, your best player, you can see he's not quite 100%. I was excited to see Elliot kind of take that mantle that we've seen Yaks take in a couple of games, where it's like, hey, you need a guy who's on the ball, who is just going to make it happen. And Elliot did that for a time. Now, he had foul trouble in the game, but it was good, I think, for this team to see him be able to do that for a stretch in this game. I mean, we've already been impressed with how well he's shooting the ball. I think he's 43% from three. So that part of it is really coming around. But this was, I mean, get on my shoulders, fellas. I got us. And Wisconsin couldn't pull away because of that.
Yeah. A lot of times when you go on the road into a tough environment, I feel like you can't really count on your bench to make a change, and you can't really rely on freshmen. But in your own building, that's a little bit different. And I thought that Michigan's bench was not as good as I expected, not as good as they've been. LJ Kaysen can be a difference maker, and he just didn't play very well. Trey McKinney's been shooting so well. Once again, as a freshman, you're looking at maybe them changing the game 1 out of every 3 games and really making a difference. He's probably 2 out of every 3 games. So he is so far above most freshmen, but I was looking for more of a bench spark. But let's not mix words here. When you give up 91 points in your own building, there's no denying what the problem is. And it was on the defensive end. You can't give up 91 points, especially 54 in the second half. Man, they got hot, and really good teams look at each other and they say, okay, this can't happen anymore. Let's get some stops. And they never did that.
Yeah, there was Ira gave the stat. I want to give him credit for it. He said they weren't in the top 200 in 3-point shooting efficiency, which is crazy. And then what you said, Ira, top 2, it's like that's
Percentage.
Percentage. Yeah, it's just amazing. And then but they started hitting them, Tim. And once they hit like 3 of them, I mean, that's I don't know what the right adjustment would have been, but clearly the adjustment they made didn't work.
Sam, this summer, it was late summer. I flew to Madison and I watched the Wisconsin Badgers practice. And then I gave a motivational speech to their team. I spent time with their coaches. I watched their players warm up and go through their routines and practice. And it really was good to get a refresher on why Wisconsin basketball has been good for so long. They have great character and unbelievable culture. And as I watched the game and watched them play, I thought to myself, Michigan, and it was going to happen at some point, but Michigan opened up the blueprint for everybody in the Big Ten to beat them. Everybody knows it, and everybody's going to work so hard to beat this Michigan team based on what they've done this season. And so think about this. Greg Gard probably watched about 90% of Michigan's games at some point over the last couple of weeks, just knowing that a win on the road against Michigan is going to put them in a great position to play in the NCAA. It's 2 times the value of any other win. And so Michigan's going to get that every team they play from this point on. And everybody's got a really good idea how to beat Michigan now.
So I kept waiting because those guys were and it wasn't in a bad way. They were excited that they were with Michigan. They were playing with Michigan. They had Michigan down by a couple points, and they won the game. And they were really, really tough. I kept waiting for someone on the team to like, hey, to be that guy that got the team fired up. Like, you see what these dudes are trying to do to us on our floor? To be that person. I know that's often Will Cheddar, but you wanted to see some of that juice. So that's when Justin said, I just didn't see the competitive energy. A lot of that you talk about and how the game is played. You know, are you on the glass? Are you diving for loose balls? But to me, it was also that kind of energy because you saw it from John Blackwell, who came back home, right? He was like, he really wanted to perform well on the home stage. And you just felt like Michigan was more of, we can flip it on when we want to. And it just didn't work in this game.
Yeah, and Nick Boyd, too, having played at FAU for Dusty May, he wanted to play well for his coach. The best two players on the court were the Wisconsin guards. Blackwell's from Brother Rice. You know that's the biggest game of his regular season career. And also, look, we're all so impressed with Yax. I love his game. And everybody's saying he's an All-American and a top 10 pick in the draft. Last 4 or 5 games, I haven't seen that level. Like when I broadcast the LaSalle game, I had said, you know, sometimes I watch Yaxel and he reminds me a little bit of Paolo Banchero, who played at Duke and is now with the Magic. I'm not seeing that right now. He's totally capable, and I think he's done a great job. But All-American is a different stratosphere, and he's playing. How about this? He's playing like an all Big Ten player. I think he's capable of playing like an All-American, and that's not
the injury though.
Yeah, and those bone bruises can linger, but I'm not really seeing him limping around. And he made some plays that made me think, okay, you know, he looks good. He looks really good. I don't know how hurt he is, but I do know this: he can't be hurt right now. They need him too much.
Right.
Be hurt later. Be hurt, you know, next in the off season. Be hurt. They need him right now at 100%.
Yeah, Steve Horn on YouTube. First of all, he said, oh, so Tim is to blame for the Wisconsin loss.
You know, the problem is, I talked to Nebraska's team too, so that may not help us down the road.
But he echoes your point. He said All-Americans play like All-Americans every game, and that is the difference. And, you know, again, we've seen him take over a couple of games with his play, with his energy. You just see all of that. And I just feel like right now, even if he's not limping around, he might be laboring some as a result. Not to say that that's an excuse. Collectively as a team, you can't ebb and flow with the level of the opponent or what you think is the level of the opponent, because that can come back to get you. But we got a couple of questions before we get to more of your commentary, Tim, heading to the next game. And so one of them comes from one of our subscribers over on the MichiganInsider.com. He says, E-Double says, Tim, love watching Morez. Do you see him as a legit pro? He hit a turnaround jumper that I didn't realize was a part of his game.
Yeah, I see him as a pro. And if you're looking for a comp, he reminds me a little bit of Montrezl Harrell. Just physically gifted, tough, elevates the team with his energy, and his shot looks like it has functionability where he can develop it. He can get more consistent. NBA teams are looking at guys that can make a three, and I think he's made 3 this year. That's not going to get it done. But the good news is that NBA scouts are going to say, you know what, go back to Michigan and work on your jump shot for a whole summer and see how it looks next year. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, man, he's hit a good portion of, what is he, 4 for 6 from 3, Ira, I think is the stat. Like, not to say that you're going to have him shooting those at volume, but man, a turnaround jumper, shooting a few threes. He's definitely putting in the work on the shooting aspect of his game. So will it take another season? I think you're probably right, Tim, because you got to be able to do it every single game for the pros to think you got it going on. But boy, this is a good start. Here's another one for you, Tim, real quick. This one from Peaks24 over the MichiganInsider.com. It says, now that Michigan is back down to earth, let's go with this. Let's narrow it down. He said, what are the biggest adjustments that are needed to fend off some of the games that we've seen here of late, like the Penn State game, the Wisconsin game? What did you see as the biggest adjustments moving forward?
So I think that I would like to see someone step forward as the leader on this team, the alpha dog, the going into Purdue, you want to say, I'm with him. Whether, I don't know who that he is right now. It's not any of your bench guys. It needs to be a starter. And I mean, I feel like I know the players, but I don't know who has the strongest voice in the room. I think Namari Burnett is a really, really good leader, but he's more lead by example. I think Montrez Harrell. I'm sorry. I think that when you look at Adai, he's not that guy. Yax is a little bit quiet. Morez, he's tough. He plays hard. I'm just not sure who that really vocal leader is. It's definitely not Elliot Cadeau. So I think that's something that Dusty May is going to have to manufacture a little bit. I love how Dusty May is so poised and so calm in press conferences and all appearances. That's the way he goes. Somebody's going to have to really bring up the heat, I think, in that locker room.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that about Elliot. Like just the way that he's played, he's a point guard. The way that he has led this team on the floor, his shooting, he's always making the right play. He can get fiery at times. I can remember the Maryland game when the dude was on his leg and he looked like he was ready to jump on him a little bit. But he is kind of more of a quiet guy. And then when you sit and you think about it, Tim, it feels like that's most of the guys on this team. I mean, Will is the one that you look at and you know that he has that fire about him. But does it have to be Will Cheddar being more assertive, or are you looking for it to be someone else?
No, I mean, Will's a leader. There's no question. But I'm just saying, and I'll say it again because I think it's a valuable and it's a powerful tool. When you walk onto the court at the Breslin, they're going to say things. It's going to be loud. It's going to be hostile. I always felt like when I played with New York, when you played a big game, Charles Oakley, you would want to walk in next to him because he just made you feel big and strong, and you knew that there was going to be a level of toughness. Yeah. Patrick Ewing was that way. Some teams have it, some don't. And so I'm not saying Michigan doesn't have it, but I think it's a great asset, a tremendous resource. And if they're going to walk into a Final Four game against Duke, you want to have somebody that is bringing that alpha dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so winding things down here. I don't know if you've watched much Washington or Oregon, if you have any things that you're looking forward to in those games, but I'm just curious as you look ahead, as they get in deep into Big Ten play, who do you think poses the biggest threat? If we can see that any team can beat you if you aren't playing your game, when they are playing their game, who do you see like, man, that team is going to give Michigan some problems?
I would say that right now Purdue's the best team in the Big Ten. And I know I'm not saying something that's shocking. I don't think Michigan will have much problem with Oregon or Washington. Washington has some good talent. The Steinbeck kid was so good against UCLA. I think he had 29 points and only missed one shot. But they're middle of the pack. And especially because the wake-up call was delivered, Michigan should be able to handle both of those teams. Washington and Oregon are good, not great. And so I don't worry about them. But I'm so excited to watch Michigan against Nebraska, because Nebraska will probably go into that game undefeated, and it will be like Wisconsin's mindset when they played Michigan. Michigan will be the hunter in that game, and so we'll find out a lot about them.
Yeah, Purdue is interesting because Braden Smith is he is a floor general to the extreme. You can just see games where he just outthinks the opponent. And you worry about Michigan's ball screen coverage against that guy. And yet they really, really made him work in the second game they played last year. And I'm just not a big believer that they're going to be able to push Michigan around as much as they pushed them around in the paint last year with Trey Kaufman-Renn. Yeah, Oscar Clough to that as well. But I just, if they get back on their game, I'm feeling better about that one, Tim. I just, wow. The team that kind of worries me a bit is Illinois. I just think Illinois can do some things with their front court. They can challenge Michigan in some of the ways that they've been challenged these last couple of games, and that concerns me about them.
There are 5 teams that can beat Michigan, and we know Wisconsin, we know Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois, and I still think that Ohio State has a little bit of an upside, and there may be more. The Big Ten has so many good teams. And if Michigan relaxes, and they've now shown us that they're capable of doing that, they can get beat by almost anybody in this conference. But I don't see that happening.
Okay. So last one for you. I want you to be the definitive word on this point, unless you want to close out with something else. But one of our viewers, Mark Dotson, he had a series of posts, Tim, that I want to put up. He says, the switching defense promotes passive play. Said, and it lends to the rebounding issue because guys don't identify anyone to box out. And then he said, watch them. They point fingers on defense like they're air traffic controllers. Do you see this issue, the switching defense? They maybe need to dial that back a bit. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Every college basketball coach would love to be able to switch 1 through 5. I broadcast a lot of games. I talk to coaches. I ask these questions. And the switching 1 through 5 is one of the greatest resources. It makes it hard to run your offense. It makes it hard in the screen game. Think about it. If you've got a 5 setting a screen on a point guard, and you've got a center that can just seamlessly jump onto a point guard and contain him like Morez Johnson can, that is such a great resource. I don't think it promotes passivity. I think the guys embrace it because they ultimately want to be professional players. And in the NBA, if you have a switchable 4-man, such a great resource. And if you get 5 guys at the same time that can all switch, it's really hard to deal with. I like that defense.
Absolutely. Well, listen, passivity or complacency due to how well they were playing. Sounds like some of that might have creeped in. Nothing like a loss to shake it out of you, right? And they had that very close affair, but maybe that'll jolt them back into how they were playing before this 3 or so game stretch here where they haven't seen it as much. Timmy Mack, great to have you back, my friend. Happy New Year to you, and looking forward to seeing these Wolverines as they get out on the West Coast trip.
Yeah, and also, Sam, thanks for having me on, and excited about the Go Blue Hoops podcast, which will get released tomorrow. We're going to be talking to Mari Burnett. He's got a great story and a lot of good insight, and just want to thank Hale Media Group for supporting us. So thank you.
Before we go, can you tell folks some of the guests that you've already had on?
We've struggled with that, Sam. Let's see. We had Cassie Russell, Glenn Rice. We had Mara as one of our guests. Yax was a guest, and we're just going to keep bringing Gary Grant. It's been a lot of fun. Nick Stauskas. Who else do you want?
You want. Hunter Dickinson you had.
Yeah, Hunter was actually this week, and it was so good, I think, for him to have a chance to talk about his love of Michigan and the reasons he left Michigan for Kansas. So that's available. Check it out. It was a really, really good conversation.
Outstanding stuff from Timmy Mack. Tim, as always, appreciate your time. Folks, thanks for listening to another edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider.